Before I started writing about games full-time in 2006 for BoardGameNews.com, I was a freelance magazine writer, a career that's analogous to being a game designer in that you come up with ideas, you pitch them to editors, hopefully the editor buys it, you go work on your thing on your own usually, you deliver it to the editor, what you think is a final product, and then they of course develop it further and make all sorts of other changes, and they work with you. There's a lot of back and forth on that until you're all happy with what's going out and actually being produced and released on the market. Oh, ideally, you work well with that editor and you want to work with them again. It's sort of a sign of confidence when you do get to work with them again. They think that you do a good job, and you as the writer or the game designer respect what they do from their end as well. And you want to see those relationships build over time, because usually that's good for both of you. When something succeeds, it looks good. Both of you look good in that partnership as the item succeeds. And you think of Scott Almes working with Michael Coe from Gameland Games on the Tiny Epic series, where it's just going on one genre after another and quite successful in what they do. So it looks good for both of them that they deliver these games that people come back to again and again for the next one in the series. So you look at Fertility. This is only the second game from Claude Leroy, but his first one was also with French publisher Catch-Up Games in 2015. That was a game Sapiens, in which you had domino-style tiles that you would place on a shared game board. Well, Fertility is now placing domino-style tiles on a shared game board with Catch-Up Games again. So you're building on this relationship that came before, where ideally they've learned from what they've done in Sapiens, and now they're going to do something different than what they had initially. So what is this? Here are the components for Fertility. You have a shared game board created from 3 or 4 individual boards arranged in whatever order you lay them out at random. Each player has a Metropolis board that has a number of shops on it and room for 7 district tiles that players will acquire over the course of the 9 rounds of the game. Each player starts with 0 wheat, and to score points, you will try to collect wheat, you will observe different gods, you will fulfill orders in the shops, and you will place monuments on the shared board. Each player starts with 3 domino-style tiles, and you lay 3 tiles face up in an area where someone will draft a replacement after they have taken their turn. So on a turn, you must take one of your tiles and place it on the board adjacent to the starting square or any tile that has been played previously. You must match the symbol, at least one of the symbols that you're placing next to. So I place alabaster next to alabaster, and I get 1 alabaster because I'm next to it, not because of the alabaster here. So I place that resource on the side. This green area here, the grapes, are next to wheat. And if you place anything next to wheat, then you advance your wheat counter 1 space. You must spend resources that you collect. If you don't do anything with them, they're thrown away. So don't do that. I can place this up here in the shop where I spend an alabaster and I immediately acquire a bowl or papyrus leaves or grapes, but then I just have to spend that as well. I can instead acquire one of the district tiles, and it has the cost in the upper right hand corner. If it says 1, then you discard any 1 resource, and you can discard wheat as well to acquire one of these. So I can spend nothing to acquire this district. I can activate it with an alabaster, and at the end of the game, each alabaster that I have placed into my Metropolis will now be worth 1 point. I replace that with a new tile. And I draft something over here so that I will have something to play on my next turn. So the next player may go, perhaps they place this here with a grape next to grape, and they're covering cattle on the board, so they would collect a grape and a cattle for covering this and a wheat for covering this. So this is how the board builds up over time. So if you place something here where the only thing that matches is alabaster, you don't get grapes because you're not placing grapes. You're placing only alabaster. So that part of the challenge is building things up so that you can profit from what you place without the opponents profiting first. But of course, they're going to play before you play. So that's one of the challenges of the game. If I place this here, I get a green papyrus leaf for placing next to green, and I get grapes for covering grapes. So I can take those resources. I could choose to pay them up here, and that gets me a god of my choice. So at the end of the game, I score points based on the number of different gods I've seen. Or I could choose to spend the papyrus leaves to get this district, and then I can spend the grapes over here, and that gives me 4 points. There's lots of different possibilities. I could instead buy this tile for nothing, place the grapes here to advance my wheat. And now I still have papyrus leaves. Well, I can place it here and get 2 points, or I can place it here and get half a god for now, because you can acquire at most 1 tile at a time. If I don't place grapes by the end of the game, then I don't get this at all. So I have to plan ahead. Now you draft, and then we continue. Fertility is a classic Euro game in that the individual actions are straightforward. You place a tile on the board, you collect resources, you spend those resources to do stuff and get points. And it fits that model in that you're usually rewarded for specializing in one area over anything else. The first few wheat you collect are worth only 2 points each, but then the value goes up with each subsequent wheat. So then you're getting 3 points a wheat, 4 and 5, and up to 6 points a wheat. So you try to drive everything in that direction with the districts that you're taking and where you're placing things on the board. You're, of course, limited to the tiles that you can draft, so this might not be possible. You have to look at the districts that are coming up and see whether you can put something together. Seeing only 1 god or 2 gods, not a big deal. No one cares. You see all 6 different ones that are possible, great. You've scored a ton of points. Similarly, you have districts that reward you for putting something into your metropolis. So I had the one that gets me 1 point for an alabaster. Maybe I get the other one that's 3 points per alabaster. And then all I want to do is go alabaster crazy and just fill my whole board with it. But again, am I going to see those districts? Will I see those tiles? Can I make that happen? There is one way to collect resources that you couldn't otherwise get. As the game advances, you might have the opportunity to place a tile so that you create an empty area that's surrounded on all 4 sides by tiles, wheat, or lakes. And when that happens, you get the resources like normal. So I'd collect an alabaster, I would collect a wheat. But in this empty space here, I can take a resource of my choice, or I can establish one of my 4 monuments. Whoever has placed the most monuments at the end of the game collects 15 points, with the player who has the second most monuments getting 7 points. So you're placing only 9 tiles over the course of the game, so you won't have too many opportunities to place these monuments, but you can look for these opportunities as players make other moves. It depends on what's important to you and what you want to focus on. Ideally, you can just place 1 monument and no one else bothers, and you'll get the majority and be done. That may or may not happen. If your opponent had gone this way instead, well, then they wouldn't have set you up to create this monument here. But of course, you could have done this and now surrounded this space. And you would have gotten an alabaster for this, and papyrus here, and a wheat here, and the monument, which would have been even better for you. So they made the right move by going this way, unless, of course, the right move was to do something else completely. And there's an overview of Fertility, which I played twice on a review copy from Catch Up Games. As I've already mentioned, this is a classic Eurogame style, where you are confronted with relatively simple and straightforward challenges, and you just have to make the best of it. Right? Draft the right tile, choose the right district, place the tile in the right position, make good choices so the other player can't take advantage of what you've done. Don't give them easy wins. That's part of what you're going to do, is paying attention to their tiles and making sure you don't put something down so that they can match it perfectly while placing next to wheat and surrounding a particular area so they can put up a monument or get some other resource, and so they can profit way more than you can. You're up to the luck of the draw sometimes in which districts come up, because you might try to specialize in something early, but then those items don't come out frequently, or you don't have the tiles available to draft them. And you can definitely try to starve someone in a 2-player game, much more than I would imagine a 3 or 4-player game, try to starve them from a particular resource that you think they want, because you can draft tiles that would be good for them and not give them something that will let them finish a district that they desperately need to finish in order for a big score. So it's very straightforward, classic gameplay in the usual gorgeous looking French package.